The most disciplined people you know are not winning their days through sheer force of will at 2 in the afternoon. They are not gritting their teeth at their desks, white-knuckling their way past the third cup of coffee, dragging themselves over some invisible finish line by nightfall. No, they have already won, quietly, hours earlier, in a window most people sleep through, scroll through, or snooze straight past without ever knowing it was there. And here's the part nobody tells you about 5 a.m., the part the books and the slogans always get wrong. The number on the clock was never the point. I want you to sit with that for a moment, because if you are anything like the person I am speaking to tonight, you have spent years believing the opposite. You have believed that the people who seem to move through life with calm, unhurried command must simply have more of something than you do. More energy, more motivation, more of that mysterious substance we call willpower, as if it were a fuel they were born with a fuller tank of. And so you have tried to make up the difference the only way you know how, by pushing harder, by grinding longer, by meaning well, working honestly through the whole long day, and then lying down at night with the strange, hollow feeling that the day somehow ran you instead of the other way around. If that lands a little too close, I want to offer you a different idea. The problem was never your effort. You have plenty of effort. The problem was your timing. You have been trying to win the war in the middle of the battle, when the real outcome was decided long before the first shot, in a margin so small and so quiet that almost no one even notices it is theirs to claim. Let me show you what I mean. Picture a ship leaving harbor in the dark, an hour before dawn. The water is glass. There is no wind to speak of, no swell, no traffic, just the slow breathing of the sea, and a captain with one hand resting easy on the wheel. In that stillness, a single finger of pressure changes everything. 1 degree of heading now, while the water is flat, becomes 100 miles of difference by the time the sun is high. The costs almost nothing. The captain barely has to try. Now imagine that same captain trying to make the same turn at noon. The harbor is gone. The sea is churning. There are other vessels crossing his path, sudden gusts, waves slamming the hull from 3 directions at once. He hauls on the wheel with both hands, and the ship barely answers. The cost of steering has gone up 100-fold, and the result is a fraction of what it would have been hours earlier. Your first waking hour is flat water. It is the only stretch of the day where a single degree of correction costs you almost nothing and changes almost everything, and almost no one steers in it. Most days are not lost to a lack of talent. They are not lost to laziness, whatever your snooze button is whispered to you about your character. They are lost in that small, invisible window between the moment you wake and the moment you begin to react, a margin you have been handing away every single morning without ever deciding to. So when I say 5 a.m., hear me carefully. I do not mean a setting on a clock. I mean the act of putting your hand on the wheel while the water is still flat. 5 a.m. is a symbol. The flat water is the truth. There is something else happening in that window, though, and it is worth understanding because it is not only poetic, it is physical. In the first 30 to 45 minutes after you open your eyes, your body does something remarkable on its own, whether you cooperate with it or not. It releases one of the largest cortisol surges of your entire day. Researchers call it the cortisol awakening response. Within roughly half an hour of waking, cortisol can climb by something on the order of 50%. We have learned to think of cortisol as the villain, the stress hormone, the thing to be managed and lowered. But this particular surge is not an attack, it is an ignition. It is your body striking a match to start the engine, an ancient mechanism designed to bring you online, to sharpen you, to get you moving. Here is what makes that window so rare. That chemical jolt arrives at the one moment of the day when your mind is genuinely uncrowded. No unread messages yet, no half-finished arguments replaying behind your eyes, no open loops, no pending dread, no list. For one brief stretch, you have a clean desk and a full tank at exactly the same time. Think about how seldom those two things ever coincide. Most days, when you finally have a little energy, your mind is a mess of obligations. And on the rare mornings when your mind is quiet, you are usually too exhausted to use it. The first 45 minutes is the one window where both line up, sharp and clear at once. Let me make that concrete because I want you to feel the difference, not just nod at it. Picture two versions of the same morning, the same person, the same Tuesday. In the first, you wake and immediately the world rushes in. You reach, you check, you read, and by the time your feet hit the floor, your head is already full of someone else's Tuesday. You are reacting before you have had a single thought of your own. You carry that crowd of voices into the shower, into the kitchen, into the car. You have not had one clear thought all morning, and it is only 8 o'clock. Now, the second version. You wake into silence. For 10 minutes, there is nothing in your mind but your own breathing and the gray light at the edge of the curtain. A single thought rises, not an urgent one, just yours, something you actually want to think about, a problem you have been circling, having already had the clearest thought of your day. Same person, same brain, same Tuesday. The only thing that changed was what you let into the room first. Most of us spend that gift refreshing a feed. We take the cleanest, most chemically primed window we will get all day, and we hand it immediately to a stranger's agenda. That is not a moral failing. It is just a habit nobody ever taught us to question. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it. That window is prime real estate, the most valuable land you own, and you have been letting other people build on it for free. Which brings us to the first action you take after waking, because that first move is not a small thing, it is a setting. The very first action you take after opening your eyes does not just begin the day, it programs it. One deliberate move tells your brain, in a language deeper than words, that the day is yours to direct. One act of surrender tells it the day is something that happens to you, something to be endured. Consider the snooze button. We treat it as harmless, this little 9-minute mercy, a soft landing between sleep and the cruelty of getting up. But look at what it actually is. It is a negotiation you lose every single morning before your feet have even touched the floor. And you do not even get what you are bargaining for. That fragmented extra sleep is junk, shallow, interrupted, the kind that leaves you groggier than if you had simply risen. So you pay, and you get nothing in return. But the rest you lose is not the real cost. The real cost is quieter, and it is far more expensive. When you set an alarm, you make a promise to yourself. Get up. And when the alarm sounds and you reach over and silence it and roll back into the warm dark, you break that promise in the day's very first conscious act. You have just taught yourself, before you have done anything else, that your own word means nothing, that what you decide does not have to be honored. It is a tiny breach of trust, almost too small to notice. But now multiply it by 365, a year of mornings, each one beginning with a small, silent lesson that your intentions are negotiable. Is it any wonder that by the afternoon, the part of you that is supposed to follow through has stopped believing the part of you that decides? Now picture the other person, the one who rises on the first alarm. Not because it feels good, it almost never feels good, and anyone who tells you it does is selling something. They rise because the standing up itself is a promise kept, the first domino, and the whole day inherits the momentum of that one small act of integrity. They are not more disciplined than you by nature. They have simply learned that the first thing they do is the thing that teaches their brain who is in charge. Win that single domino, feet on the floor at the first sound, and you have not won the whole day, but you have told the day who you are. And then, before the day can answer back, most of us do the one thing that undoes all of it. We reach for the phone. I understand the pull. It is the first thing within arm's reach, and it promises to connect you to everything at once. But understand what you are actually doing when you pick it up first thing. You are handing the steering wheel to strangers. You are beginning the day on defense, flooded with other people's emergencies, other people's moods, other people's emotional residue, before you have formed a single intention of your own. You wanted to set your heading. Instead, you let a dozen other captains grab the wheel. The researcher Sophie Leroy describes something that explains exactly why this is so costly. She called it attention residue. When you touch one task, a piece of your mind stays snagged on it long after you believe you have moved on. You think you have closed the tab. You have not. A sliver of you keeps running it in the background, draining you. Now picture how this plays out at 6 in the morning. You glance at your phone, still half asleep, and you read one mildly stressful thing. Not a catastrophe, just a curt email, a worrying headline, a slightly cold message from someone you care about. You put the phone down. You think it is over, but it is not over. A sliver of you keeps chewing on it through breakfast, through the commute, through the first real hour of work, quietly taxing you, dimming you, right up until lunch. You spent the sharpest window of your day metabolizing a sentence you did not even need to read yet. The device in your hand was engineered with enormous care and talent to capture exactly this undefended moment. It is a casino built for your attention, and the early morning is the open door it was designed to walk through. And the strangest part is that we walk in voluntarily, eyes still half shut, before we have even decided to. So make this one rule sacred, and let it be the rule you build the others around. Intention before information. Set your own heading in your own mind before you let a single inbound voice into the room. Now all of this, the rising, the silence, the resisting, sounds like it demands an enormous reservoir of morning willpower. It does not. And this is the part that changes everything. Because the 5 a.m. mind is not manufactured at 5 a.m. It is built the night before. Morning discipline is, almost entirely, a setup problem. You do not rise to the level of your willpower. You fall to the level of your preparation. Watch how a surgeon prepares for an operation. Every instrument is laid out on the tray, in order, before the patient is ever wheeled into the room. Nobody performs precision work while rummaging through drawers, searching for the right tool with the clock running. The setup is not separate from the skill. The setup is what makes the skill possible. So let me give you the surgeon's tray for your morning, because the difference between 2 mornings is not the person, it is the preparation. In the first morning, your clothes are somewhere on the floor, in a heap, and finding them is a small puzzle you must solve while exhausted. Your phone is charging on the pillow beside your head, glowing, the first thing your hand finds. The kitchen is cold and empty, and the coffee is a whole process you have not started. In that morning, discipline means out-muscling a warm bed, and then defeating a dozen tiny frictions one after another. Each one a little argument you have to win before the sun is even up. No wonder you lose. Now build the second morning the night before, piece by piece. A glass of water, full, on the nightstand, so the very first thing your hand reaches for is something that wakes you rather than something that hijacks you. Your clothes laid out in the order you will put them on, not folded in a drawer, laid out, so dressing requires no decision at all. The coffee preloaded, the machine set, so it is one button and a smell, not a chore. And your phone, this is the one that matters most, charging in another room entirely, not across the bed, across the hall, on the bathroom counter or the kitchen, somewhere that requires you to stand up and walk to silence the alarm, somewhere it cannot be the first thing you touch. Same person, same willpower. But in that second morning, the discipline choice is simply the easiest one available. You have removed every place where a hard choice used to live. You did not summon some heroic burst of grit at dawn. You lit the fire with dry kindling you stacked the night before, when stacking it was easy. 10 quiet minutes in the evening designing tomorrow's first hour, so the right move becomes the path of least resistance, that is the whole trick. Discipline, it turns out, is mostly something you do to your environment, not something you do to yourself. So now you have the window, and you have made it easy to claim. The question becomes what you do with it, and here the answer is sharper than you might expect. Spend that undefended hour on the single hardest, most avoided task that actually moves your life forward. Not your email, not the satisfying busy work that feels like progress. The specific thing your tired afternoon self will always find a reason to dodge. There is an old idea about eating the frog, doing the worst thing first. But the version we usually hear misses the truth underneath it. The frog is not just the unpleasant task. The frog is whatever quietly generates dread. And dread is not free. Dread taxes you all day long, especially when you are not doing the thing. You carry it. It sits in the back of your mind, draining a current of energy you never account for, the whole time you are doing everything except the one thing that matters. Let me give you 3 people, because the pattern is the same every time. The first spent 4 years finishing a dissertation. 4 years. Not because the work was 4 years worth of work, but because it had become permanently the afternoon's leftover. It was the thing attempted only after the easy emails were cleared, after the small tasks were done, after the energy was gone. It lived in the worst slot of the day, every day. Then this person did one thing. They moved it, and only it, to the first claimed hour, 6 in the morning, before the world could interrupt. 5 months later, it was done. Nothing about the work itself had changed, only the slot it lived in. The second is a novelist I knew of who had been telling people for a decade that she was writing a book. And she was, in a sense. She opened the document most days, but she opened it at night, after the dishes, after the children were down, after the day had already taken everything she had. The words came out thin and few, and most nights she closed the file feeling like a fraud. Then she flipped it. She wrote for 45 minutes before anyone else in the house was awake, in the dark, with coffee and silence and a brain that had not yet been spent on anyone else. The book that had refused to arrive for 10 years was finished in a single one. She did not become a better writer overnight. She just stopped offering her craft the scraps. And the third is simpler, and maybe closer to your own life.
A father of 2 who kept saying he would get back into shape, who genuinely meant it, who had a gym bag that lived hopefully by the door and went unused for a year. Every evening the plan dissolved. A long day, a tired body, a child who needed something, a perfectly reasonable surrender. So he stopped scheduling it for the end of the day, where it had to compete with everything, and moved it to the beginning, where it had to compete with nothing. 20 minutes before the house woke up, before anyone needed him. Within 2 months, it was not a struggle anymore. It was just what he did before the day began. The task had not gotten easier. It had simply moved to the 1 hour when nothing was allowed to interrupt it. That is the pattern. Take your one hardest, highest leverage thing, the frog, the book, the body, the project that has been quietly generating dread for months, and give it the first claimed hour. Then guard that hour as if your life depended on it, because in the slow, accumulating way that matters most, it does. Nothing trivial gets to touch it. Now I have to stop and say something clearly, because everything I have told you can curdle into a new kind of cruelty if you take it wrong. This is not a cult of 5 a.m. The number is not magic.
There is nothing holy about the hour itself. And if you have ever felt a wave of shame reading some morning routine manifesto, felt that you must be weak or broken because rising before dawn makes you miserable, then I want to lift that off you right now. Chronotypes are real. They are partly written into your genes. Some people are larks and some people are owls. And forcing a true night owl onto a lark schedule does not build discipline. It builds exhaustion. It backfires, and badly. I watched it happen once. A genuine night owl, a friend, white-knuckled himself to a 5 a.m. wake-up for a month straight because a book told him that was where success lived. He slept 5 broken hours a night. He ran on caffeine and irritation. And his work, the actual work the whole thing was supposed to serve, got worse, not better. He was practicing discipline as a form of self-punishment. And self-punishment is not discipline. It is just suffering wearing discipline's clothes. When he finally stopped, he discovered something. His real dawn was 9:30 at night. That was when his mind quietly came alive, when the house had gone still, when no one needed anything from him, when the day's noise had finally drained away and the water went flat. That was his undefended window. It had been there the whole time. He had just been told it did not count because the clock said the wrong number.
The science is on his side here, by the way. Your genes genuinely nudge you toward morning or evening, and fighting that wiring is not grit, it is friction. The 5 a.m. mind, in the end, is a posture, not a position on the clock. It is the act of finding your own true dawn, your most alert, least interrupted stretch, whenever in the day it actually falls, and defending it with the same fierce seriousness the early risers give to theirs. So find yours. It might be 5 in the morning. It might be 9 at night. It might be a strange, quiet pocket at 2 in the afternoon when the house empties out. The hour does not matter. The claiming does. There is one last thing, and it is the thing that makes all the rest of it last, because everything I have described so far still sounds like it runs on willpower, and willpower, I promise you, runs out by Wednesday. Anyone who has tried to white-knuckle a new morning routine knows the arc. Monday, heroic. Tuesday, proud. Wednesday, the alarm goes off and the whole noble project quietly dies in the dark. Willpower is a terrible engine for anything you want to keep. It was never meant to carry you for long. What carries you is identity, and the shift from one to the other is the entire game. Listen to the language people use about themselves, because the language is the prophecy.
I'm not a morning person. We say it like we are reporting a fact, like stating our blood type. But it is not a fact. It is a sentence we recite until it becomes true. A small daily incantation that builds the very wall we then blame for trapping us. Now hear the alternative. Not I'm trying to wake up earlier. Not I should really get up. Just this. I'm someone who takes the first hour. Notice it is not a goal. It is an identity. It describes who you are, not what you are attempting. Here is why that distinction is everything. Every single time you rise and claim that window, you are not just completing a task, you are casting a vote for who you are. One small vote, dropped quietly into the ballot box, in evidence of a particular kind of person. Miss the morning, and you have voted for the old self, the one who gets met by the day. Keep it, and the new identity quietly accumulates another piece of proof. Let me show you the moment this turns, because there is a moment, and you will feel it when it comes. For weeks, it feels like acting. You rise, and a voice in your head says, "This isn't really you, you're faking it. You're a snooze button person playing dress up as someone disciplined." And you do it anyway, against that voice, day after day, with no sign it is working.
And then one ordinary morning, and you will not be able to predict which one. The alarm sounds, and before the old voice can even begin its argument, you are already sitting up, already standing. Your feet are already on the floor, and you are halfway to the water glass, and you realize, with a small, quiet shock, that you did not have to fight for it this time. The verdict has come in. The votes have been counted. You are not a person trying to become an early riser anymore. You are simply someone who takes the first hour, the way you have brown eyes or a certain handwriting. It is not a performance. It is just true. And from that morning on, the alarm is almost a formality, a courtesy you extend to a decision you have already made about who you are. That is the destination. Not waking earlier through force, becoming the kind of person for whom the first hour is sacred, and then letting that identity pull the alarm instead of forever shoving the alarm uphill with the last of your strength. The identity does the lifting. You just have to vote for it long enough for the verdict to land. So let me leave you with this, and I want you to actually carry it out of here, not just admire it. Every day is a letter. Either you write it or the world writes it for you. And for years now, be honest, you have been letting other people write your opening line. Other people's notifications, other people's emergencies, other people's moods, arriving while you were still half asleep and undefended, dictating the first sentence of a day that was supposed to be yours. You do not have to overhaul your entire life to change this. That is the lie that keeps people stuck. The belief that it has to be everything, all at once, a total transformation, or nothing. It does not. You just have to take back the pen for 1 hour, one window.
one claimed margin of flat water before the sea begins to churn. So here is the only thing I will ask you to do tomorrow. When you make, at whatever hour your true dawn falls, put your feet on the floor at the first sound. Take 3 slow breaths before you reach for anything at all. And in your own mind, before a single message gets in, say one sentence about how you intend the day to go. That is it. Feet down, 3 breaths, 1 sentence. The smallest possible act of writing your own first line. Do that, and you will have done the one thing almost no one does. You will have steered while the water was still flat. That is 1 hour reclaimed. But an hour won and an hour held are 2 different things. And the truth is, the world will come for that ground the moment you take it.
So next, I want to show you how to protect the hour after that one, how to carry the calm and the command of your dawn into the churn of the day, so the morning you fought for does not evaporate the instant the inbox opens. That is where we are going together. For now, sit with this one, let it settle, and when you are ready, come back, and we will keep rebuilding the rest of the day, hour by reclaimed hour. Tomorrow, before the noise, before the world even knows you are awake, write your own first line.